Allie, officially welcome to the Wealth Juice podcast. I'm excited to have you on the show. You and I connected, man, probably like a month ago
hmm
now. And after our conversation, I was like, man, you got to come on our show. You got to tell your story. I'll tell a little bit about it briefly before I let you jump in. But, you own dozens of units in the upstate New York area. And, one of my first questions when I ask people about that is like, when you're at 50 plus, and you'll tell me the exact number, but I'm like, how many partners do you have? And you're like, I got nothing. I got none. It's me. I did this myself. And I think that is really, really cool to see what you've built. So I appreciate your time. Thanks for coming on, and looking forward to having a great conversation.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Cool. All right. So for people that don't know you,
hmm
Keib Capital, Keib, is that how you pronounce it?
It's Keib.
Keib. Oh my God. I 50-50 shot at that one.
It's
Keib,
okay. Everyone messes that up. No problem.
Keib Capital Property Group is your company. So tell us a little bit about you and what you do, and then I want to rewind to like the pre-real estate and talk about that. But just tell us a little bit about your company.
Sure. So you hit the nail on the head. It really has been just me for most of this. I'm happy to say that right now my real estate investing company does have a team. So it is me running the show, but I have an assistant property manager and a maintenance guy and a facilities manager helping me out with this. But yeah, I manage these properties on a day-to-day basis, and continually looking for new opportunities to continue to grow and scale. So
Cool. Yeah. I think I remember the conversation that we had is you were starting to look at larger deals. And that was
mhm,
like this crossroad that a lot of investors get into. The only way that Ryan and I could buy larger deals is if we
yeah,
partner with people, because I didn't have $1
right.
million to go put down on a 16 unit that we're looking at right now. So for you, let's go back to like pre-real estate, before you had any of these properties. I'm
Mhm.
very curious what got you into the space, what got you excited about this, and how did the light
Sure.
bulb, what was the
Yeah.
light bulb moment like?
Yeah, absolutely. So I am a financial services professional by trade. So I worked for the better part of a decade in New York City, actually in the retirement planning industry. I started out out of college selling variable annuities. So if you know anything about finance and retirement planning, variable annuities essentially are retirement vehicles that guarantee income for life, which is a little ironic because fast forward a whole bunch of years, that's sort of what real estate does, right? These rental properties. So I've always sort of been really passionate about like income that doesn't run out. How do we set ourselves up for the long term, being super disciplined in our accumulation phase of life? Um, so honestly, if we didn't move upstate New York, I probably would have kept with that company for my entire life. I was really happy, really career oriented, on a fast track, and I loved everything about what I was doing in my 20s. Um, my husband and I moved upstate in 2014 for his job. So I left the city, came upstate. We had no kids yet, and I continued to work in financial services. I worked for a Goldman Sachs company up here for a couple years, and then I got pregnant. And I had been, commuting about 45 minutes south, and I just sort of said, "I'm not sure this is really what I want to be doing." I've started to sort of think about flexibility and waking up every day working for someone else, and I just sort of said to myself, this doesn't feel like it's the life that I want, as I think about being a mom and going in this next phase. So I left, and I had our first child. I now have three kids, but I was loved being a mom, but I felt this sort of pull, right? Like I lost a little bit of my identity, and I'm sure a lot of women and moms that are listening to this can relate to that. Here I was, a go-getter in New York City, and now I'm this like housewife upstate, right? So I have this aha moment. I remember being up late at night, and I was just sort of Googling. My daughter was sleeping, and I'm like, what can I do where I don't want to work for someone else? I don't want to have a W-2, but I want to contribute to the financial success of my family. I'm smart. I worked really hard. Like there's got to be, right? It's got to be something. And so I stumbled upon Bigger Pockets, honestly. And I was reading, watching all these videos of finding deals. And I'm like, I can do this. Like, I'll just buy a duplex and this will be great. And I'll do this like with my daughter on the side. And it's something I can do flexibly. And I had never had any intention of growing it the way that I have. Truly, I was like, I'll just buy a couple properties. This will keep me busy and I'll feel really good about, I had read about a lot of tax benefits with regards to real estate investing and how it can offset your W-2 income, household W-2 income. So that was really appealing to me. And so I kind of dove right in. bought my first duplex, and it was super organic. Like it was like one property a year for the first bunch of years. And then I just sort of started to like snowball and scale from there.
The funny part about this whole thing, there's a lot I can dive into, but you don't just shut off a Goldman Sachs brain. It's not, and I'm not, look, I'm not a corporate guy. I've never done any of that work, right? But I know that when people say, "Hey, I want to pursue financial freedom, and I want to live this big life. I want to go attack this thing unconventionally from what other people do." And if you think for a minute that the time, energy, and effort that it takes to go into that you're going to be able to shut that off when you achieve quote unquote financial freedom, it's just not reality. And you were working this corporate job, long hours, and you were a go-getter, and you were really career oriented. It's literally no surprise to me that you went from buying a couple deals to 50 in the time frame that you had, because it's just like you're kind of wired for productivity in that way. And you and I had this conversation a few months ago, like, what am I doing now? And I was like, Allie, I think you're doing like pretty well. Like now, everyone's at a different stage, everyone's at a different level, but I was impressed enough by your story to want to hear it. So I think part of it is like taking a step back and being like, wow, look what I have built, with still the mindset of like, what's to come. So I want to dive into some of these deals that you did, maybe the first few. If you could give me some numbers and just walk me through what purchasing them were like. Were they 25% down, conventional investor loan types? Like, how did that work?
Okay. So yes, the first bunch of deals were just that. My first deal, it was actually the only deal I bought on the MLS. Since then, a lot of it has been relationship driven, sending letters and things. We can get into that a little bit, but, didn't really know what I was doing. just searching on the MLS, honestly. And so I find this duplex. It was $139,900. And I put, 20, I think it was 20%, maybe 25, but it was a conventional deal, and it needed, it was vacant on the bottom, needed a renovation on the bottom. I remember the number I put in, 11 grand. It was small. So new flooring, new paint. I had the worst contractors. I had no relationships. I made every mistake in the book, which truly, I know this sounds cliche. If you don't make these mistakes, like you just don't learn them. So like I hired this contractor, nothing in writing. He wasn't showing up for work, and I had nothing to, and I paid him, a little bit ahead, right? Like, don't do that. Everything has to be in writing, timelines associated with everything. You're going to give money here, and you're not going to give another dollar until that's done, right? So all these things I learned the hard way. But so anyway, first floor, 11 grand. Second floor was totally under rented. He was paying like $800 a month. And so I went in, stabilized that building, renovated the bottom, and sweetest man in the world. He ended up passing away. And he was my first tenant. And this is why I have to put systems in place and people in between me and my tenants, because I get emotionally attached, which is another story, another conversation. But anyway, this property ended up being stabilized in a few months. I was quick to renovate, increase the rent to probably like $1,100 or something. So it's cash flowing fine. I ended up selling this property for $291. So I bought it for $139,900, sold it for $291 last year. And I ended up putting 1031ing and taking that money and putting into something else. But that would, I think people talk about having the first deal is not the best deal. Like, I don't know that I ended up making a fine profit on it, but I made a ton of mistakes. It wasn't cash flowing amazing because 2 units tend to not. Like, if you have one thing go wrong, your profits get really sort of eaten into, which is another reason that I, thought about scaling up and went that route. But, then the next year I bought a property for $160, put a $30,000 renovation. It was fully vacant. Both units are vacant. So I redid both of those apartments. And I ended up, that property I still own. I cash out, refied that for $285. So I was able to pull out all my cash, and I put that into a 10 unit. So I've just sort of recycled my smaller duplexes that I bought in the beginning, pulling cash out from a combination of 1031 exchanges and cash out refis. And, I think the real turning point in my business was right when I was doing those renovations. Like, that was all coming out of my personal, like, I think we talked about this, right? Like, so you buy this first duplex, it needs 11 grand. Well, you're not cash flowing enough to put that into, right? So, okay, Dave, like my husband, right? We got to infuse me. We're like constantly pulling money from our personal account, which was the plan from the get go. But I think what has been a turning point for me in my business was several years ago when I realized that all my renovations and all the turnovers and all that was being paid right out of the business. And so it was really a business running itself, and the profits were going back into the business. And that has been huge for me because it's just a self-running separate entity.
So if you've ever tried getting a mortgage, which I'm sure many of you have, you know how daunting and discouraging it can be of a process. The slow process, paperwork, being told no without any real explanation. One time we were even told that taking out a home equity line of credit on an investment property wasn't even possible. So that all changed when we were introduced to Neo Home Loans. What makes Neo different is literally how they approach lending. They're not just checking the boxes. They're legit problem solvers. They look at your entire financial picture and explore multiple angles, literally until they find a strategy that works. They helped us reposition our portfolio, pull out lines of credits to scale, and structure everything for long-term growth. And on top of that, their rates were some of the most competitive that we've seen. They just literally did whatever it takes to find a solution. For us, Neo has become our liability advisor, the same way you have a financial advisor on the asset side for the liabilities. If you're serious about building wealth through real estate, it's worth sitting down with them and getting your lending strategy dialed in. If you want to book a call with them, click the link in our show notes. Their team is unreal, but don't just take it from us. Find out for yourself.
So that's
I think that takes a while, Allie, to get into that mindset, and not just the mindset, but actually like see that happen where your first 3, 4, 5, 6 deals, you're funding, you're refunding, you're trying to refi. Maybe you don't get the number you thought you were going to get, and you are redeploying your own capital, but that's what it takes in the beginning.
Yeah.
And I always tell people, just get started. Your first deal is not going to make you wealthy anyway. It almost doesn't matter, but you can't see the edge of the woods or through the woods until you're in it. So when people are like, well, I want to buy this deal that cash flows $600 a month, my first deal, great. It's possible. You can do it. But either way, you're not going to be living off that $600. Even if it's $1,000, you're not going to be living off that money. So figure out a system to help you get in the game. And then once you get in, the game gets easier. So for you went from that first deal, that MLS deal. When did it shift for you to start buying off market? And what did you do to realize that you could start buying off market and change the business model?
So I started writing letters probably after my first deal. That's how I got all the rest of my smaller multifamily properties. The letters really helped me to identify owners in our community that were looking to sort of have a conversation about selling. Some people just reached out to me just to sort of say, hey, I got your letter. Sounds kind of interesting. Like, what are you thinking? Right. I actually will never forget. I was on a treadmill when I sent my first batch of letters. I got a call back and I wasn't prepared. Right. So I was like, yes, check the box, sent all my letters, but I didn't know how to have the conversation. So he's like, so what are you thinking about? And I'm like, who are you? Like, what? And so that taught me, so every mistake, you really learn from. And so I'm like, all right, next batch of letters, everything has to be like organized when they call you back, because they will. I wasn't expecting phone calls back, but they will respond. Okay, here are the questions you need to be asking. Here's the information you need to then ask them to then say, tell me more about your property. But it's just a relationship game. And so I figured that out. And I thought that these letters, the MLS can be very transactional. And I think relationship-based buying and selling is just much more up my alley. So.
Yeah. So all of your properties are in, is it Albany?
Nope. So I have properties in Boston Spa, New York. I live in Saratoga. So about 20 minutes south of me. And then Glens Falls is 20 minutes north. Okay. And then I have a 23 unit in Hudson Falls as well.
Okay. So what was it like for you to go from buying the small deals, buying a 10 unit and buying a 23 unit, and you're doing it like with recycled money within your business? And I guess when I said you're doing this all yourself, what I meant for people to hear is that not that you don't have a team that's helping you run your business, but what I meant is that you're not taking outside investor capital. It's all of the capital that you and your husband had funded in the beginning and then recycled throughout the business, which means you own 100% of your portfolio, which is exciting. So tell me about the transition to get from a couple, like a duplex, and then what was that like to buy a 10 unit?
I'm excited to talk about this because it was easy. Like, this is what I think people would love to hear, right? The systems are everything. If you have a system to manage 4 units, you can easily do 10, 15, 20. Like, it no longer scares me to take down a 25 unit building. Like, the same thing you do for a 4-unit building is the same thing you'll do for a 25 unit building. Like, it's all the same. The communications go out, of course it's a little bit more involved because you've got just more units to sort of manage and put your plan in place. Okay, which are the tenants that you're going to probably are not paying, right? That's like the low hanging fruit, right? You do that. Then it's like, all right, where are we under rented? Where, like, everything is the same. So your systems are everything. If you have a foundation for that, scaling up is not hard. And so when I figured that out, when I went from my biggest jump, I guess you could say, is from 4 to 10 units. To me, the 10-unit property felt bigger, right? And I'm like, oh, I'm so scared. Blah, blah, blah. And it was, there was nothing more daunting or scary about the 10-unit than the 4-unit or the 2-unit. And so once I figured that out, I'm like, okay, I can do this at a larger scale.
What did the numbers look like on that 10-unit? Like, how did that come to be? And like, how did you know that? Obviously it's just math, it's elevated math, right? But how did you know it was a good deal? And how did the numbers shake out?
So the 10-unit property I bought for $905,000. And the second duplex that I was sharing about, where I bought for 160, 30 in, and then I refied for 285. So I took the cash out of that. And then I think, I had to add a little bit in, put 20% down, from our, for personal savings, and bought the 10-unit. And at that time, so the units were renting for probably, I don't know. And again, upstate New York, the rents are lower, but, I think rents were like 900, 1,000.
These are 2 beds?
There are 7 2-bedrooms, 7 2-bedrooms, 2 1-bedrooms, and 7 2-bedrooms, 2 3-bedrooms, and 1 1-bedroom. So and so the 2 bedrooms now are 1,700. So I just was able to just raise rents a lot. And so the other thing that I don't do in my business, I know a lot of investors that come in, they renovate everything. They just go, like, that's their plan. They go in, they take all the kitchens out, their plan. And so a lot of deals they have to toss out because unless they can buy really low, the numbers don't work with it. Right. And so for me, that's not really what I'm doing. My bread and butter is to find a mismanaged property where I don't need to renovate the entire unit necessarily. I want to come in, paint some new flooring, a kitchen where it makes sense, do some sort of minor enhancements, raise the rent, thereby raising the NOI, of course, right? And slowly just increasing the value of the property through smaller enhancements, without having to do full on gut renovations. And so those are my favorite deals. So this seller, I knew him. It was a relationship, and he shared with me, like, I know these tenants, I feel bad raising rents, but you totally could. And so that's just what I did. So I just took it and trusted that there was nothing wrong with the property. Of course, I had an inspection done, but he truly just was too close to these tenants. He told me, I can't raise these rents. I've known these people for so long. You come in and do it. And so that's what happened there.
Yeah, I mean, that's the relationship game where he trusted you in a way. He sold it to you for a reason. That
Yeah.
Like, look, I'm trying to exit. He might be in a different stage in his investing journey, and I think if anytime you have a longer time horizon when you're investing, real estate's so forgiving and you can win because your strategy is similar to ours. The only difference is the capital structure where we raise capital from our investors. But the point is that we're sometimes coming in and we're doing, if we have a 10-unit. We're renovating 6 of the units, or we're renovating 3 of them at one time because those are the 3 that were coming up on the leases. And then it steadily increase over time, and we have a 5 to 7 year time horizon. So it's not like we have to buy something that's vacant, that's super, super undervalued, and we put hundreds of thousands of dollars. And we're taking our time and allowing the forced appreciation and the regular appreciation to kind of work in tandem the longer that you hold these assets. So I think that's great. I want to ask you about your portfolio architecture. And did you say how many units you're at now? Like 50 something?
Yeah. So, I'm actually in the process of doing a 1031, and we're not signed yet. So I'm not really going to talk too much about it, but, I'm very hopeful that that goes through. So yeah, right now it's just under 60, and it will be 75 or so after that goes through. I
Okay.
would
So
sell a property and then buy another one. So
yeah, so you're
yeah.
at a stage in your investing journey, and I've always set my goal in the beginning was one property a year for 10 years. Now that shifted
Mhm.
once our podcast started to make some noise a little bit. We started to create partnerships, and then we got in this accumulation, and we're still in this buy phase, right? So,
Uh-huh.
but I always thought, it would be so cool to have 20 properties and then have this architecture of like, well, I have my most five recent that are 75 to 60% leveraged. I have some in the middle that are 50% leveraged. And then I have six that are paid off, that are really cash flowing, that I can
Yeah.
really actually like start to live off of this cash flow and really realize it. I'm curious, in your stage that you're at, do you have any plans for some of your portfolio? Because if you paid off 10 of your units,
Yeah.
you could like, if you did want to live off that income, like
Yeah.
totally, right? I don't know.
Right.
Like
I
what,
know.
what's the thought process there?
It's funny. Because like we don't live off of this. This is all just like reinvested in. Like this is for later in life. But it always just strikes me like that those thoughts, we talk about that stuff a lot. When I started this business, I will tell you, I didn't even know about refinancing or 1031ing. I mean, my plan was just buy these things and let them sit and don't do anything. Like, and so once I learned about really redeploying the equity in the properties, like, wheels started to churn and stuff. I don't know that I have the best answer for that. I think for me, it's like we're not in a position where we need to be living off this. And so we're just trying to, I think, maximize, right, the portfolio, I would say. So like my first duplex was the only duplex that I sold, and it was because like return on equity was like lower than it should be. Like my money could work harder elsewhere. And once I start seeing that in a property, I think about an exit. And so that's where we sold that property. It was a small unit. Like I had renovated one, and I thought to myself, even if I renovate the other, I'll only increase the rent by X. Like I had maximized, like I squeezed out all the meat on that bone, and I just was like ready to sell it. And I don't have any regrets on that. And so I think rather than, that's how I think about it. It's like, and so I have a 23 unit now. It was mostly an equity play. Mismanaged, like we talked about, like super low rent. I've stabilized it. It's not a property I really want to keep long term. I know that. I think I'm ready to take the equity in that and put it into something else, because it's like a little bit of a ticking time bomb. Super old property. Not something, from an economies of scale perspective, it's sort of further out from my other properties, like not something I see long term. So I'm thinking about an exit there. So I kind of look at my properties one by one and think about, I have a couple of properties too where the rates are like 2.75%. And so I have a ton of equity sitting in there. But I'm like, why would I refi? I don't need the cash right this minute. If there was an opportunity that arose, needed the cash, it's nice to know that I could do that and refi, but kind of kills me, if I don't need the cash, like I maybe just let it sit. Right. So, but we had that 10 unit we talked about, bought it for 905. I did refi at 1.4, pulled that cash out, and I'm still sitting on that because I haven't found a deal. So I don't know. Sometimes the timing's not right. Right. So like, I don't know that was a great answer, because
No, I think it
I
is.
think
I think it's
yeah,
you're optimizing for your equity as
yeah.
opposed to optimizing for your cash flow. And that's because
Oh,
you
100%.
know that the long term of this game is like, I think about this too. Like, if you're gonna get $10,000 a month in cash flow, why fight for all of that $10,000 a month if you can exit at 400 grand
Right.
by turning that into something, right? So it's like that is going to take 3.5 or 4 years to
Yes.
get to that same amount of dollars.
Yes.
So
Yes.
you're still in the trade up and trade up and trade up. And I think
Yes.
that is kind of, it's just, I think you're a testimony to people listening, thinking like, man, if I had 50 something units, I'd be set. I'd be living off the cash flow. It's like, well, and to be fair, you could if you
You got
wanted to, but you'd have to pay down some properties, and you'd have to stop optimizing for the upside of the equity and start optimizing for the safety of holding on to these properties. And that's an
Yeah,
interesting balance.
it's a give and take, because like if you're living on your cash flow, then you don't have the cash to then put in the properties to then increase the income to then refi and cash out, right? So like it's like, I know a lot of people that have real estate investing on the side. And they're living on that, but I'm not sure. It's a different model, right? That's fine. I know people that call that financial freedom because they were able to replace their salary. So they're living on their cash from their rental properties. I think people have different definitions of financial freedom. To me, financial freedom is not replacing a kind of lowish income so you don't have to go to work. My personal idea of financial freedom is waking up, doing whatever you want, whenever you want, absolutely no, right? Travel here, whatever. That's different, but I could see why someone thinks not having to go to work is financial freedom. It's just a different definition.
Hey, let me pause the episode real quick. Let me know if this sounds like you. You're making six figures, you're climbing the corporate ladder, investing in your 401k and your Roth IRA, and maybe even a brokerage account. But deep down, you're asking yourself, is this really it? Like, am I just going to do this thing for the next 30 years and hope to retire in my 60s? That was exactly us just a few years back. We were curious and excited about real estate, but overwhelmed and without a roadmap. If you fast forward to today, we've built a portfolio of over 80 cash flowing units and grown our net worth to over $2 million. We made it our mission to help busy professionals like you take that same leap and start building generational wealth for yourself and your family. That's exactly why we created the Wealth Juice Inner Circle, a private real estate investing community designed to help you get your first rental property under your belt in as little as 90 days. Inside, you'll get direct access to us, our full investing network, private off-market deals, and our exact playbook, and a community of investors who are closing deals every single week. That first property changed everything for us. We always talk about it. It was the true foundation for building generational wealth. And honestly, if we had access to something like this when we first started, we'd be 10 times further along by now. So if this sounds just like you, click the link in our show notes and schedule a call with me. Yes, me. I'll be taking the calls. We'll go over your goals, map out a plan, and get you ready to close your first deal. Let's get it. I totally agree. I think your strategy has been one that a lot of people dream about getting to the point of like, well, your husband works, right? He has I assume a good job or a good career that he's been able to help you get started. And now you're managing this and you're still using just the active income from, and maybe you pay yourself a salary from the business. I don't know. But the point is that you're using that active income to continue to roll into your business, even at 50 to 60 units. And I think it's what I want people to hear that. Now, there's a million ways to play this game and you can do it differently.
A million ways.
But if you get to a point in your portfolio where like Ryan and I have gotten to this point where it's been a couple $1,000s a month, et cetera, and cash flow, but it's like, if that's not going to move it's me and Ryan, right? So if that's not going to move the needle in why would we not just continue to roll it back? And we still have our mentorship. We have our brand. I'm an agent. Like I'm still actively after 8 years working on the things that I really enjoy working on. And I think that's the distinction. It's like people think financial freedom is like, I don't have to do anything. It's like, well, no, you can carve out the life that you want to live. And that kind of leads me to my next question for you is like, what are your goals with your business? Like what's 2026, 27, 28? Like, I don't know. Have you thought about where you'd like to end up with this? And is there a time where you do take your foot off the gas a little bit, or is it all gas no brakes for you?
One thing I've learned over the last few years is I can get really caught up in moving the goalpost. And I think a lot of people feel this way, right? It's like you set these goals just because you feel like you should have these big, massive goals. And when you get to a certain point, instead of celebrating it, you're kind of like, well, what's next? It's not good enough. And I mean, I'm guilty of doing that. But I think one of this is cliche, but contentedness means so much, right? And and sort of being okay, this is what I've sort of worked really hard to get to. So let's just enjoy that. And you and I we connected it, like you said, a month ago. And I remember we talked about this, my life is the way that I want it. I woke up this morning, I put my kids on the bus. I was with them all morning, breakfast. I didn't have to run out. I didn't have to commute anywhere. I didn't have to be anywhere until 10 o'clock when I played tennis. And I played tennis for an hour. And then I came home and I took a shower and I'm on the phone call with you. I am happy and I'm content. And I want to keep scaling my business, but only for properties that make sense. And I'm constantly looking, but I'm not stressing myself out about it. I would love, at the end of the day, a couple $100,000 gross income a month. I think that would, in addition to my husband's 401k and all the other stuff that we have invested, I think that would give us a very rich, happy life. Rich, not in the sense of money, but just we can do what we want when we want. And so I don't think about goals in terms of number of doors. I think that's like a mistake that people make. So, the last point on goals that I would say is I hear in this business a lot of people using number of goals as sort of the benchmark for their business. And
Number of doors, right?
number of doors.
Yeah.
Sorry, did I mess that up?
Number of goals. That's all right. Yeah.
Oh, number of doors. Like, so, people will say, oh, you want 100 doors, or I want 150 doors, or I want 300 doors, or if they're syndicating, right, I want thousands of doors. And the issue with that, of course, is it's really hard to measure the success and profitability of a business based on number of doors. Like for me personally, like I would take 15 units in a growing area with, systems in place, stabilized properties, good tenants, high income, over 40 units in like a kind of a crappy area with low units and like a kind of an old dilapidated building with tons of maintenance issues, right? But so if you look at that, someone says, oh, what's your business 15 versus what's yours 40, on the surface, this 40 unit person looks like they're more successful when they're in reality, not at all. I mean, it goes back to the partner thing too, right? If you've got 6 partners and you own thousands of units, great, but you have to share it with a lot of people, right? So it's similar, like you have to sort of dig a little bit beneath the surface to really understand somebody's business. And I just think by going off a number of doors as a goal can be a mistake for those reasons.
It definitely can. And I run into this too, because like on our Instagram, we have, 95 units that we write out there. And I'm always clear with people that it's like, well, I own these with partners, I don't own these with 50 partners. I have a select number of people that we buy real estate with, and me and Ryan are general partners. But it's still important to tell people that and to be upfront and let them know, like, the reason that we were able to scale is because we leveraged other people's skill sets and other people's money, and we went that route as opposed to trying to do it all on our own. I don't think there's a right or wrong, but to your point, yeah, you do have to dig beneath the surface a little bit to find out where people are. And for you, I think I appreciate you saying that you feel like you've actually hit this stage where you are really enjoying what you're doing. Cause so am I. I'm like, I always want to grow. I always want to get better and buy more deals and have more cash flow, because the cash flow really truly is like the level of passivity that you want it to be. I want all of that to happen, but I do get to wake up and go to the gym when I want and spend time with my fiance. And I don't have to clock in to some job that I hate. And I think even if people can get to a level where that is their baseline, it's like, I'm doing what I want when I want. Even if you can't travel to the south of France on a whim, you're still having a life that you enjoy waking up to and you enjoy doing. I think that's probably the goal. And the goalpost, if you're going to move the goalpost, maybe don't move it. Maybe just add an additional one after you do kick it through that one, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I told my team this week, I was in Florida all last week with my family. And I had no worries. I had a couple, maintenance things come in, which I saw on my phone. I'm tracking that stuff, of course. But I see these things, don't even blink an eye, because I know my team is taking care of everything. There was a snowstorm at the end of the week. I didn't bat an eye. I knew it was covered, and, I just didn't have to step in anywhere. We have these systems. We know what happens as soon as a work order comes in. Like, my tenants were good. My team was good. Like, I could just enjoy my family. And I 5 years ago, that wasn't me on vacation. I was the one talking and texting and doing all these things. Right. So, it is nice to sort of see the fruits of my labor a little bit,
Yeah, absolutely. So I just want to talk a little bit more tactful before we get into like to wind down the show. The way that you're buying deals now is, do you have a certain number of mailers that you're sending, or a certain number of is your team still doing the mailers? Are they doing calling? How are you getting in touch with these sellers? And then is the underwriting department, is it Allie? Is Allie underwriting these deals? Like, how do you determine what's a good deal for you to buy in 2026? Because it's changed.
It has changed. So honestly, the letter writing has stopped a bit. I have found that the sweet spot, this has just been my experience, so people may disagree, but the letter writing works, I think, a little bit better with the smaller multifamily, because it's more mom and pop, right? You're talking with more people, right? So once you go larger multifamily, you're more inclined to be talking with sophisticated investors. who want top dollar and who, right? So the letter stuff, I mean, I get letters about my properties too, right? So I get it, but I have had less success with the letters. And now I'm not really even looking at anything under 10 units. And so the letter writing, I think, has run its course for me a bit. I'm still doing it, but it's just much less. As I'm getting slower, much lower response rate, which could be, I could attribute that to the market as well. But I have a bunch of like brokers and realtors that are sort of always have their feelers out for me, and I'm always looking as well. But like relationships are again, I'll just go back to that. Like right now, I'm in the process of working on something, and it's with someone who I already did a deal with, like as someone I already bought a property for. Like, and these relationships will just keep coming back to you. I also am the co-founder of our CRREIA in our area, and so we have like 150 members now. I don't run the group anymore. I've sort of passed that baton, but I'm still an active member. So networking is huge for me. Just going to the meetings, talking with everybody, standing up, talking about deals. If I have any off-market deals on my own, like when I was selling my duplex, I certainly stood up and told everybody, hey, I've got this duplex. Any newer investors looking for a 2-family, right? And so I'm listening to other deals on the market. And so networking relationships, to me, that's how I'm going to find these deals. It's where I do my best. I like realtors, but I tend to just go direct to the seller if I can. So I have those relationships, but I don't typically, have anyone in the middle. It's usually just like off market.
Yeah. And you're in a market, like you're not in like a New York City or even a Philadelphia or something that's like, a top major market. And
Right.
all of those markets you can find real estate meetups to go to. But if you're listening to this podcast and you're in, maybe it doesn't have to be rural, but like if you're not in like a big city, like start a real estate meetup. Like that would be my recommendation.
Yeah.
Go and be the one that champions it, because it's a lot easier, I've noticed, to be in front of a room when you're like, oh, you started this thing. Like you don't feel as intimidated. It's like, even if you have 2 units, go start it and get 5 of your friends together and have them tell 5 friends, and go to a local brewery and just have that be your first meetup. And you would be, just speaking to the audience here a little bit, that I think you'd be surprised on what you could accomplish from doing that. When people always say it's relationships, what does that mean? Well, it means that you got to get in front of other people that are doing deals. And if you're talking to sellers, that seller might have 150 units that they started buying in 1993. And then they're thinking, oh, Allie's a person who could potentially buy from me. And there's phases of the cycles of real estate. So someone's
absolutely. And I think people make the mistake of, they go to a one real estate meeting and they meet somebody and they think like, oh, hi, I'm so-and-so. Oh, hi. Oh, hey, I have a 15 unit. Do you want that? Like, it doesn't work that way. It's so much time, right? The seller I'm talking about right now, like, I mean, this has been years and years that I've known him and talked to him and followed up with him. And like this stuff, it like does not happen overnight. Like, so to think you're going to go to a networking event and then come out with a property, like, no, it takes time. It's persistence, it's consistency. And it's just like, putting those feelers out and making sure that like people know what you're doing, because if people know what you're doing, when they see something, they'll think of you, right? So if you are top of mind because you have shared what you're doing. So even if this person you're talking to doesn't do real estate investing, if they know you're doing it and then their grandma's friend has a property, then they know that you're doing that and they can share that with you when they find that out, right? So like everybody in my circle knows what I'm looking for and doing, even if they have nothing to do with real estate investing, because people have different connections. And so you have to put it out there. This is what I'm looking for, so that when people come across it, you're top of mind for them.
Yeah, we had a deal. I just got off the phone with my partner, Sean, and we just got a letter of intent, like well, I guess we're not technically under contract yet, but we've assigned LOI from a deal that we were looking at in the beginning of 2024. So 2 years we were chatting with the seller. He didn't want to sell. He was in Mexico. We couldn't get a hold of him. We didn't know where he was. He came back. Deal changed. He wanted to put more units in. Then he took units out. And it was that 2-year process. Finally, we have a number that we agreed upon to buy a 17 unit. And it's 2 years. And my partner, Sean, and I are going back and forth. We're having meetings every week on what's the progress. And it's just, but that truly is the persistence that it takes. And I always am an advocate of like, well, we run a mastermind. We run a community of investors looking to buy their first or next rental property. And now there are people in our community that are starting to do partnerships with each other. But that takes 6 months of meeting somebody and having conversations and understanding tolerance. And like, it's hard to just think you're going to go to 2 meetings and then you're going to have deal flow. So
Correct. Yep. It's very it can be sometimes tedious, but just have fun with it. And like I just think networking has opened up so many doors, and you get credibility to your point earlier, right? Like if you're standing up in front of the room and you're talking about things that you're doing, right? Like people are like, oh, okay, like she's in this thing, right? Like I'm not a typical real estate investor. Like one time I stood up actually I said like raise your hand if you've done a real estate deal in the last 2 years or something. And like the entire room raised their hands. And then I said, now drop your hand if you're a man. And the entire room dropped their hand. And there was like one person in the back that was a woman. So like, if you're a female listening to this, like, it's not a disadvantage. I think it's actually an advantage because you have an edge. You're different. You're unique. People remember you, so just get in that room, shake their hand, and start making those connections. So
I couldn't agree more. I think it is. I think it's a superpower, and I think it's I like. There's a lot of respect because people do think it's kind of a man's game. I just think I think men are more interested in it in the first place. That's kind of what like most stereotypically. But
yeah,
I think for you, this is kind of leads me to one of my last questions. Is like, I'm curious on your messages to like mothers that are out there that are maybe they feel similarly than to you did. And it's funny, you're not speaking to my fiance because she's trying to leave her job as soon as she can and wants to be a full-time stay-at-home mom. So I'm working on that over here, Allie. But
and that's awesome. Like I almost envy that. I'm like, oh, I would have loved to love that.
yeah. And I don't even have kids yet. So we'll see. That might change. She's I say it tongue in cheek. She has a career, she's a graphic designer, she loves her work. But I say, like, I think she feels like her purpose is a little bit more driven towards like she's very maternal and she wants to raise kids. But there are many women out there who feel like not that they lose themselves in that, but it's just a different feeling, like kind of like you had, like, oh, is this amazing, beautiful, wonderful, but I don't know if this is all that I want to do or this is all my identity is. So I'm curious what you have to say to women who are maybe listening, driving, maybe a part of their husband's portfolio, building it together, or want to do it on their own, even without them. Maybe their husband has no interest or their significant other has no interest.
Yeah.
How would you phrase it to them and maybe some just words of advice for people?
Well, I guess the first thing I would say is like, there's no judgment. Like this is one thing I learned, like so many women feel so differently about this stuff. And you just have to sort of go with your gut. You mentioned maternal, loving raising. Like I am very maternal. Like I'm obsessed with being a mom. Like maybe that hasn't come through as much, but like it's my absolute number one thing in my life. Love raising my kids. I just also really love to be stimulated by work and by success and right. And like, I've always been that way. So that's just me. And so, I have a lot of friends that are the complete opposite. All they want to do is be with their kids. And I think the biggest thing to take away is like, whatever you feel is fine, like then and great. But for me, I did want something which started as the side. And now it's sort of like been a more full-time thing now that my kids are in school. But I think with real estate investing, the beautiful thing is you can do as much or as little as you want. You could have one duplex if you want and, manage it and feel like you've got something on the side. You can scale up, you can do it over time. You can, right. And so if you just start it, and see where it goes, like to me, like you can't really go wrong, right? I mean, you could lose a little bit, but like in this business, like you're going to lose money here and there. Hopefully you make more than you lose, but you can't be scared of losing a couple dollars with a contractor, right? It's going to happen. But over time, you'll sort of learn the tricks of the trade and you'll end up getting it. And so I would say, real estate investing has really enabled me to quote unquote have it all, right? Like have the time with my kids as much as I want, the flexibility, but also really has allowed me to sort of dive in from a business perspective and grow something on the side. The other thing I would add to that is if you're someone who's in a relationship, a spousal relationship with, say, your husband makes a lot of money in a W-2 job, real estate investing can be such a powerful complement to that. And this is something that we have learned, my husband and I have learned actually after the fact. So it's been such a lovely thing to sort of have our eyes opened up to. But in the eyes of the IRS, if you're considered a real estate professional, you have real estate professional status. And you have to sort of check a whole bunch of boxes to be able to sort of call yourself a real estate professional. But the losses in your business can offset W-2 income, which has saved our household, hundreds of thousands of dollars over the course of, however long I've been doing this. And, you get those tax savings and then what do you do with it? Well, then you can go put that into more properties, right? So it's a strategy that we have implemented in our household that I don't think is talked about enough. This combination of a high W-2 income earner and a quote unquote real estate professional. And it is it's amazing, honestly. And so if you're in that boat, and to me, like working like a job and being away from your kids and socking away a couple of dollars here and there to your 401k, or being able to leave and have the flexibility to be with your kids and have your husband make that W-2 income, like the combination, the latter that I just talked about, like is just more powerful in my opinion.
Yeah, there was something on Instagram I saw the other day that like the most powerful thing you can do is have one, doesn't have to be man or woman, whoever it is,
Yeah.
but one person in your relationship have a W-2 and the other person be an entrepreneur. Because the entrepreneur can go screw things up and mess up, and then you have some stability till as an entrepreneur, or sorry, as a W-2 earner.
No,
I totally agree. And so one of the things that have helped, like I was kind of downplaying our portfolio a little bit because I was saying that we have partners, but one of the major things that's happened for me and Ryan over the last 2 to 3 years is that because I'm a real estate professional and I'm running our business, so our real estate business, but also like our brand and our mentorship and our podcast business as well. Because of us being general partners in these deals, I have been able to write off 6 figures of tax for my business. So think about that. That's the equivalent to $10,000 a month in cash flow. What's the difference? It's the same thing. So it's just a different avenue of how you're paying that off. So if you are listening to this, I think this is a great episode for people to hear. One W-2 earner, one person that goes after this real estate thing, and you do it together, but you can use the W-2 to fund your real estate and then use the real estate to offset the W-2. So it's
Totally.
that back and forth.
And, the W-2 is also great because like for loans, like we can go to a bank and get a loan in a heartbeat because of the W-2 income. So that is the one downfall, or there's a lot of downfalls, but a lot of time you hear to quit your W-2, go in full time. But then when you're trying to go to a bank and you get a loan, it's much harder, right? So that's another benefit of keeping the W-2 in the relationship.
Well, that's the other, like as you mentioned, the downfall. I just gave you the benefit of writing off 6 figures plus into my business. And then I go to a traditional bank to try to get an owner occupied 3.5% or 5% down loan on a new primary residence. And like, you can afford a shack. And I'm like, damn, all right, I got to figure out a way to to show a lot more of this income too.
But, that's also relationships though, too. Like local banks, because the banks will have you do your PFS, your personal financial statement, like every year if you have these larger loans. And so they ask for the tax returns, and we make it very clear, like our tax returns, it's on paper, we look very different than in real life. And they get that, right? So that's where really, I think banking relationships can come into play as well. Just explaining what you've done with your tax plan.
I was more so joking, just because like if I went to like
it's so true though,
somebody that I haven't had a relationship with, they would look at this and be like, whoa, but I have unbelievable lending partners that know my situation.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah. So Allie, this has been a lot of fun. I really appreciate your time. I think the last question that I wanted to ask you, and you kind of touched on it a little bit, but I wanted to ask it more directly, is like, what you're doing is not easy. I feel like you kind of make it look easy. You started a real estate meetup. You're growing to 50 units. It's going to be 75 soon. It's this growth phase. You mentioned spending time with your kids and your family, but I'm curious if there's a deeper why behind what you're doing and what gets you out of bed every morning, and what's the purpose to this entrepreneurial venture that you turned from Goldman Sachs employee or W-2 person to the entrepreneur world. What's the driving force and the why behind it?
I think it's probably my daughter. My daughter, so I have 2 little boys, and my daughter's the oldest. She's going to be 10 in June.
She's the favorite for sure. That's got,
She's my girl.
Happens. I'm not the favorite in my family, so I know what that's like.
But we talked a little bit about this transition for me as a mom, and how it was hard for me, and I had a lot of guilt around like, I have this longing for like a career too, right? And I'm home, and the guilt wasn't a good feeling, and I think mom guilt. Everyone has mom guilt for a whole host of reasons, right? But I want Mackenzie to see me working, and I love that she sees me working, but she also sees me home with her, and she when I have to get on a call, it's okay, because it's not like I'm not going to go to her gymnastics meet. Like she knows that I'm such a present mom, and she also sees me running my business, and we get to drive by my properties. I'm like, oh, that's mommy's building. And I think she's proud of me for that. Like, and I think, I want her, when she has a baby of her own, I want her to know that there are options out there where it's not so cut and dry. It's not go to work for someone else until you're 65 and then retire, or stay at home and be like, their entrepreneurship is out there, and you can do all of it. And I want her to see that firsthand from me. And so and I just think like teaching my kids about like money and finance and delayed gratification and all of these things are like super important. We started this thing called Finance Fridays, where I take Mackenzie to a coffee shop. Like today we're going at 4:00 when she gets home, and we just go and we sit and we talk about like money. And I have a little book that we're reading right now, and we read like a chapter, and she gets a little frappuccino, and it's I didn't have that growing up, so I had to learn it. My parents were lovely and amazing, but I think sometimes they hid money from me because they didn't want me to worry about it. But that backfired, because then it causes anxiety around money if you don't learn about it and it's not taught in school, right? For whatever reason. And so kind of opening up this conversation about like saving and investing and growing money and being okay with all that. And, yes, loving your purchases and material things, that's okay too. There's no shame in that, but let's do it in a smart way. And so all of these things, like, I think that's my bigger why, just like from a larger kind of educational standpoint for my daughter.
I didn't get into how you grew up. I didn't ask you questions about that. And that would probably be a whole nother podcast episode, but just it's interesting because what I have found, and I've interviewed people who are really, really successful, a lot more successful than me or you, and their biggest problem now actually is having had the level of success, and everyone defines it differently, but their biggest problem is teaching that fire to their children. They don't know how to do it because they have multi-millions, right? So they're like, wow, I don't know if I could actually instill in my children what was inadvertently instilled in me by not having when I grew up. And I grew up middle class, and I never wanted for anything, and I had a great upbringing, but I still, for some reason, my dad was an entrepreneur, and I'm an entrepreneur, my sister is, and my brother is. So we still have this thing. And I not that I'm like absorbently wealthy, but I think about that with my kids. Am I going to be able to give them the motivation that I had? And you're doing it in your own way. I think that's really, really cool, because your daughter's learning about the value of the dollar. And look, mommy's going to buy this property, and this is how she did it. Not removing your kids from that and not showing them, just giving them the money. You're giving them the tools, right? And I think that's it's hard. It's a hard balance. I'm not even a parent, so I don't know. What the hell do I know? But it's just a thought,
It is hard. And, I think just talking openly about all of it is maybe the first step in all of it, right? So like, I think we as a society, we just tend to not talk about it. And it's just sort of funny how that is. Everyone's really silent about what you're making and what you're, right, and what you have, and which is fine. But I think sometimes that can cause a little bit of uncertainty around money and investing and how you should feel about it. And it's very emotional. My favorite book is The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel. I recommend it to everybody. And so, it kind of dives into all of that.
Very cool. Well, I appreciate you sharing and diving. How old is your daughter, by the way?
She's going to be 10 in June.
Oh, she's going to be 10. I thought, for some reason, I'm thinking she's a little bit older. Great. So you're really instilling this young. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So this was a great conversation, by the way. I mean, it's really just, it's cool to chat with people who are doing, who are efficient and doing the things at the level that you are. And I appreciate your time. If people want to learn more about you and your story and potentially network and get to know you more, what's the best way for people to get in touch with you? I know you're on Instagram, but how would you like for people to reach out?
Yeah, Instagram's fine. I'm Keib Capital on Instagram, and my email is Alli, ALLI, at keibcapital.com, KEIBCAPITAL.
Love it. Yeah, you're a good follow. We're going to be chatting further about that social media stuff too. I want you to see you grow that, because
I know. I see. I don't.
But you're getting good at it. So we'll get back on the horn about that. But that's one of the things that really worked for us. And I think as much as you kind of want to remove yourself from social media, sometimes there's ways to lean in. So
I agree.
But Allie, I appreciate your time. This has been a lot of fun. Thanks for having me, taking the time to share your story with us.
Yeah, it was a really nice conversation. Thank you.
Before we wrap this show up, I want to leave you with this. If you're listening to the show, chances are you're doing pretty well in your career. You're making maybe six figures. You're putting money into your retirement accounts, maybe stacking some cash in a brokerage account, but you're still waiting for that next level. And here's the truth. Waiting just costs you time. Every month you're on the sidelines is another month you could have had a property paying you and another step closer to financial freedom that you didn't take. Ryan and I know this because we stayed on the sidelines too long. We talk about this sometimes. We had the money, but not the guidance. And once we finally got our first property, everything shifted. It was the catalyst that built our entire portfolio and ultimately gave us freedom. And that's exactly why we built the Wealth Juice Inner Circle, to cut out wasted time, just give you the exact blueprint and surround you with a network of people who are closing deals every single week. So if you're tired of waiting and you're ready to finally get your first deal, click the link in the show notes and schedule a call with me. Let's map out your strategy and get you moving before another year slips by.